The coffee cup slipped from her trembling hands, shattering across the marble floor of the penthouse suite. Sarah Chen didn't even notice. She was too busy staring at the check on the table. $10,000 made out in her name, signed by one of the wealthiest men in America. Her mind raced back to 3 hours earlier when she'd simply done what anyone should do. She'd helped someone in need. Now this stranger wanted to change her life with a single piece of paper, and every fiber of her being screamed that accepting it would be wrong. Sarah had been working double shifts at the Grandview Hotel for 8 months straight, ever since her mother's cancer diagnosis had drained their family's savings. At 26, she'd watched her dreams of finishing her business degree evaporate into a haze of medical bills and night shifts, but she never complained. Her mother had sacrificed everything to raise her alone after her father's death, and now it was Sarah's turn to be strong. That particular Thursday afternoon had started like any other. Sarah was covering the executive floor, where guests paid more per night than she earned in a month. She'd learned to move invisibly through their world, refreshing towels and restocking minibars while the wealthy conducted their important business. She didn't resent them. She was simply too exhausted for resentment. She was passing Suite 4200 when she heard the commotion, a man's voice, strained and desperate, calling for help. Sarah's training told her to call security, but something in that voice bypassed her caution. She used her master key and rushed inside. A man in his 60s lay on the floor, clutching his chest, his face ashen. His phone had skittered across the room, just out of reach. Without hesitation, Sarah dropped to her knees beside him, quickly assessing the situation. Her mother's illness had taught her the basics of medical emergencies. "I've got you," she said firmly, already dialing 911 on her own phone. "Stay with me. Help is coming." She loosened his tie, elevated his feet with cushions from the sofa, and kept talking to him, keeping him conscious and calm. Her hands were steady even as her heart hammered. When he whispered about medication in his briefcase, she found it and helped him take it. She stayed with him, holding his hand, telling him about her mother's strength and courage, sharing stories to keep his mind off the pain. The paramedics arrived within 7 minutes. As they worked on the man, one of them pulled Sarah aside. "You may have saved his life," he said quietly. "That medication, keeping him calm, you did everything right." Sarah rode down in the elevator with them, watching as they loaded the stranger into the ambulance. Only then did she realize she was shaking. She returned to Suite 4200 to clean up, finding the man's belongings scattered about. She carefully organized everything, placed his briefcase by the door, and left a note with her name and the hotel's main number in case his family needed to reach someone who'd been there. Then she went back to work, changing linens in Suite 4205, her mind on her mother's upcoming chemotherapy appointment. 3 hours later, Sarah's manager found her in the supply closet. "There's someone who wants to see you," Gloria said, her expression unreadable. "Suite 4200. Sarah's stomach dropped. Had she done something wrong? Breached some protocol by entering a guest's room? The man who opened the door looked remarkably better than he had that afternoon. Color had returned to his face, though he moved carefully. "Miss Chen," he said warmly. "Please come in." "I'm so glad you're okay," Sarah said, relief flooding through her. "I was worried." "You saved my life," he interrupted gently. "The doctors confirmed it. Without that medication, without someone keeping me calm." He trailed off, then gestured to the sofa. "Please sit. I'm Robert Hastings." The name meant nothing to Sarah, though she'd later learn he was the founder of Hastings Technologies, a man whose net worth exceeded 8 figures. But in that moment, he was just someone who'd been scared and in pain, someone she'd helped. "I want to thank you," Robert continued. He picked up a leather checkbook from the desk. "What you did, there's no price for that. But I'd like to offer you something that might make your life easier." Sarah watched in disbelief as he wrote out the check, $10,000. "Mr. Hastings, I can't—" "Please," he said, holding it out to her. "You told me about your mother while we waited. Let me help." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That money could cover 2 months of treatment, maybe 3. It could buy time, hope, breathing room. Her mother's face flashed through her mind, her smile growing weaker each day, her apologies for being a burden that broke Sarah's heart. She reached for the check, her fingers inches from the paper that represented everything they needed. Then she pulled her hand back. "I can't take this," Sarah whispered. "What I did, anyone would have done the same thing. It wasn't about money. It was about being human." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "If I take this, it changes what happened today. It makes it a transaction. And that moment when I held your hand and you held mine, when we were just two people fighting together to keep you alive, that was pure. That mattered because it was given freely, with nothing expected in return. I need that to stay true. I need to know I'm still the person who helps because it's right, not because there might be a reward." Robert Hastings stared at her in silence. Then slowly he set the check down. "Do you know how rare you are?" he said softly. "I've spent 30 years in business, Miss Chen. I've met thousands of people. Most would have taken this money without a second thought. Many would have asked for more." He leaned forward. "I built my company on a principle I'd almost forgotten. That integrity isn't just what you do when people are watching. It's who you are when it costs you something to do the right thing. I learned that from my mother," Sarah said simply. Robert nodded slowly. Then he smiled. "I own this hotel, Sarah. Did you know that?" She shook her head, confused by the change in subject. "I bought it 6 months ago, part of a portfolio acquisition. I've been concerned about the management. Numbers are down. Staff retention is poor. Guest satisfaction is declining." He stood, moving to the window overlooking the city. "I've been searching for a new general manager, someone who understands that hospitality isn't about luxury, it's about caring for people. Someone who leads by example, who has unshakable integrity, who sees the humanity in everyone who walks through our doors." He turned back to her. "You have a business degree partially completed?" Yes, but how did you—" "Your employee file. I had my assistant pull it after you left this afternoon. Top of your class before you had to leave school." He paused. "Sarah, I'm not offering you money as a thank you. I'm offering you a job. General manager of the Grandview Hotel. Full salary. Benefits. And the company will cover the rest of your degree. You'll finish your education while you work. And you'll transform this hotel into what it should be. A place where every employee treats every guest the way you treated me today." Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "Mr. Hastings, I'm a housekeeper. I don't have experience." "You have something better. You have character. You have compassion. You have the courage to do what's right even when it costs you everything." He picked up a different paper from the desk, a contract. "Skills can be taught, Sarah. Integrity cannot. I'll provide training, mentorship, support. But the foundation, that has to come from you. And you've already proven you have it." "My mother." "The position comes with premium health insurance that will cover your mother's treatment. She can join you on the family plan immediately." Sarah's legs gave out. She sank onto the sofa, her whole body shaking. This wasn't real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why me?" Robert sat down across from her, and for a moment, his successful businessman facade fell away, revealing the frightened man she'd comforted on the floor hours earlier. "Because when I was lying there today, afraid I was dying, you held my hand like I mattered. Not my money, not my power, me. You saw a human being in pain, and you responded with pure kindness." His voice cracked slightly. "My daughter is about your age. She hasn't spoken to me in 3 years because I chose business over family too many times. When you were telling me about your mother, about her strength and your love for her, all I could think was that I'd give everything. I have to have someone love me the way you love her, to be the kind of person who inspires that devotion." He cleared his throat. "You reminded me why I started my first business 35 years ago, to create something good, to help people, to matter. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. Today, you gave me my life back in more ways than one. So I'm not really offering you a job. Sarah, I'm asking you to help me remember what truly matters. I need someone like you to show me, and this hotel, how business should really be done." Sarah wiped her eyes, her mind reeling. She thought about her mother, about the burden of bills that kept them both awake at night. She thought about her abandoned dreams and her exhausted reflection in the mirror each morning. She thought about how close she'd come to taking that check, and how glad she was that she'd trusted her instincts instead. "If I accept, she said slowly. I do it my way. Every employee in this hotel gets treated with respect. Fair wages, dignity. No cutting corners on care, not for guests, not for staff. Robert smiled, a genuine warmth spreading across his face. I wouldn't have it any other way. Sarah stood, her legs still shaky, and extended her hand. Then you have yourself a general manager, Mr. Hastings. He shook her hand firmly, then surprised her by pulling her into a brief fatherly hug. Thank you, he whispered. For today, for all of it. 6 months later, Sarah stood in her office, reviewing the quarterly reports. Revenue was up 18%. Staff retention had improved dramatically. Guest satisfaction scores were the highest in the hotel chain. But the numbers that mattered most were different. 3 employees had gone back to school with company support. Child care assistance had been implemented for working parents. And the housekeeping staff now earned a living wage. Her mother was in remission, her treatments fully covered, and strong enough to visit the hotel and beam, with pride at what her daughter had accomplished. Sarah kept the unsigned $10,000 check in a frame on her wall, a reminder of the most important decision she'd ever made. Not the money she'd refused, but the values she'd chosen to keep. Some things, she'd learned, were worth more than any price tag. Kindness without expectation, integrity in the face of temptation, and the courage to believe that doing right by others would someday lead to good things. She'd been right. And in a world that often felt like it rewarded only greed and ambition, that mattered more than anything.